believe it has started.
Santosh, your recording has begun.
Excellent. Can everyone see the screen as well?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So if you don't know, in Zoom, you have all these little buttons around the video so you can mess around and see more people or less people or the speaker, whatever you want to do. Have fun with it. Have fun with the virtual backgrounds if you want, and hope everyone is doing well. Welcome to this NAAAP Asian Heritage Month, specifically talking about our ERGs and connecting with our communities. I don't even really want to call it a webinar because this is really more of just a really good time, right? We're going to share some really cool things that ERGs are doing in a lot of our companies. Some are things that we've been doing for a long time. Some are things that are more recent because of, little things that have been happening around in the world. But wanted to just take a moment, show you our little timeline for today. This should be one of your most favorite webinars when it's all said and done because this is nice and easy. Another thing is that if you're not one of our speakers, please feel free to stay on mute until our Q&A session down at the latter part of the webinar. And I do have some friends that will mute you if you have trouble muting yourself. This is me. I'm Santosh Mathew. A little bit about me. I work for the Nielsen company as the day job. I am their Asian affinity, one of their regional leaders, national leaders. And I'm also a founding and co-founding member of the Tampa branch of NAAAP, which if you don't know NAAAP, I am surprised you're on this phone call, but I do appreciate you because I do know that a lot of our ERGs from a lot of our companies are on as well. So welcome to NAAAP members, welcome to members from different ERGs, and we are excited to have you. So a little bit about what I am doing with NAAAP and what our program does here. We are the ERG program, ERG, BRG, so the Employee Resource Groups. NAAAP, our National Association of Asian American Professionals, recognize that this is a huge area of play for us, right? Where we are able to really provide value back to a lot of our community. And a lot of our members, our membership are part of organizations that have ERGs that are at various different stages. And what we look to do is we like to supplement a lot of the programming that's happening from NAAAP. And again, there's a ton of stuff to learn about NAAAP, naap.org, not NAAP, but NAAAP.org. If you don't know, it's on the slide. And this year, and maybe into next year as well, but our theme is ERGs and me, right? So we are talking about how ERGs and BRGs not only benefit companies and communities, but how they benefit you, the individual. In our NAAAP ERG training programs, we offer a lot of different things for individuals and for companies. Just wanted to kind of give you a quick summary of what we do. And if you're more interested in any of this stuff, please look at all the different contacts, different ways to get in contact with us. We'll send you information afterwards if there's anything you would like us to do. Now, I'm going to kick it off a little bit with the storytelling, and then I've got four amazing panelists, four amazing speakers from four amazing companies as well that are going to share a little bit about what their ERGs and BRGs are doing. During this whole time, I hope that you are thinking of questions, follow-ups. Feel free to use the chat window toward the end and put your questions in there, and we'll read some of those things. But one of the things that we wanted to make sure we highlight during this Asian Heritage Month is how employee resource groups and how affinity groups are able to impact communities. So if you haven't heard of Project True Count, I'm going to talk about it here in a moment. This is what my company is doing and where our ERGs are getting involved. Just another note, right? So obviously the coronavirus has been a huge thing. Fundamentally changed the way that a lot of us have worked, lived. Obviously, we had Will kick us off a little bit with a little bit of, how is your new normal? And, I wanted to kind of give you an idea of how employee resource groups are helping our leadership at our company start to rethink things, right? We are trying to be more of the voice of the associate at the global level, right? Because D&I and diversity and inclusion is such a big thing in our company, it is being bubbled up to our senior leaders when people that are part of our membership are struggling with various different things. Our ERGs can provide resources like working from home. There's expanded mentoring. We're able to jump on amazing campaigns like Wash the Hate. And the thing I want to talk today is about this Project True Count. So if you don't know what Nielsen does, we are probably the reason a lot of your TV shows have been canceled in the past, right? We are a marketing research company that provides analytics on retail measurement, on media measurement, and we do a lot of phenomenal things, but a lot of our data is based on the US Census. So I'm not going to spend too much time on the census. I know that most of you know what it is, but here's a couple of really quick bullets. Why is our census important? It's because businesses large and small rely on census data to make these types of decisions. Governments, as you can tell with a lot of the stimulus checks and a lot of different things that are coming through, right? Governments are able to make decisions based on the makeup based off of census, right? So how do they allocate resources? How are they making policy decisions? And then communities are also powered by census data. And here's a couple of things that, we started to realize as a company and even as a diversity and inclusion leader, right? Some of the things that we are worried about being counted, right? Communities of color are struggling. Low-income individuals don't typically take part in these types of things. Various protected classes are sometimes afraid to count themselves, and it is super important that everyone be counted. So the ERGs at Nielsen have partnered up with this project that the company has kicked off, which is called Project True Count. And it's really, hey, employee resource groups, we know that you have communities that you're connected to, post about it, socialize, do networking events, do various events with the organizations that you're already part of. And these are like simple little things, but it is expanding the power of what our employee resource groups are able to do. And just for you, if you haven't done your census, there's still time, right? Still time to be counted. We have till about July of 2020. So I'm going to ask that if you haven't done it, please go. It's very easy to find on the web. You can go to Project True Count. There's more information there, but this is a little bit about how we are using our employee resource groups to impact our communities. And, we want everyone to be counted. And it's a very, very important part of our, just kind of our lives and our livelihood. So with that, I'm excited to kick off our first speaker. If my slide will go, here she is. I'm going to turn it over to Astrid. Astrid is from US Bank, and I am going to turn it over to her. Astrid, I'll control the slide, so just tell me when you want me to go to the next slide.
Sounds good. Thank you, Santosh. Hi, everyone. My name is Astrid Benedetto. I work for US Bank as Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Program Manager. So I'm really fortunate that I do this as my day job. One of the programs that I manage at the bank is the Asian segment. And I've been with the bank for 4 years. Santosh, if you could advance the slide, please. Next. So at US Bank, all of our BRGs, the mission is very simple. BRGs are here to develop, engage, and advance employees. And how we contribute different values for our company, it's really things such as we help find and develop diverse talent from underrepresented groups. We also help raise awareness about various cultures to, predominantly white folks. We also help connect with community, and we also add to business development. The next thing, how BRGs are providing values internally to our organization, is that we help increase community opportunities through partnership and collaboration with other nonprofits in the community, such as NAAAP. And then last but not least, BRGs at US Bank also help engage employees and then creating inclusion. A great example of this, when the pandemic hits, we know that the Asian community is one of the communities that got hit hard, especially with increased racism and prejudice. As the Asian segment lead, I feel it is part of my responsibility to help to continue to educate the rest of my colleagues at the bank on how we can stay connected and be inclusive, all right? And then our Asian Heritage BRG also help create a safe environment for all of our employees by facilitating open forums for discussion, to share perspective, share tips and other things, creating really that community within the bank. Next slide, please. Before I get to this one, I also want to share, so because I'm part of the DEI team, I also kind of help oversee some of the metrics. So there are two success key metrics that really ties into our BRG work. So based on our 2019 employee data, we know that board members or employees who are part of BRG board members, they have 10% higher promotion rate compared to the bank overall. And then also those BRG board members have 6% higher retention rates compared to the bank overall. So that's really encouraging, and that's proving to our senior leaders that yes, continuing to provide funding for employee groups is really essential. And so Santosh mentioned earlier, like, okay, what was our old normal? So I just want to share on the left-hand side here, this is the 4 focus area, what I considered our old normal. So our BRG, our 4 focus areas are really in the business support, recruitment support. The 2 focus areas that are really kind of the sweet spots for BRG are on employee professional development. So a lot of the professional development programming at the bank for our employees involves curating programming with the help of organizations such as NAAAP and ASCEND. But we also often highlight senior leader stories so that they can help share nuggets on how do they get there from where they're at the beginning of their journey, so that other employees who are more junior, they can learn through these stories. The other thing that I'm really proud of is that at the bank, the DEI team, we partner closely with other teams across the bank. Specifically in this case, in terms of the employee development programming, we partner with our employee experience team and our learning and development team to curate specific mentoring. So any employees can go to this internal program and elicit their skills and kind of what they're looking for, so that they can be matched with several mentors, and then they can kind of pick and choose like which mentor they want to do. So that's part of our employee programming. And part of our community work, so that's the 4th focus area, we really lined up our work and aligning it with our enterprise strategy. So our enterprise giving platform, so as you can see here on kind of the bottom of the screen, the platform is called Community Possible, and it's based off of 3 pillar strategies. It's work, home, and play. And really that's how the bank is providing foundation grants to all these causes. And because we are a bank, we love money. So one of the things that we focus on in the work pillar is really working with a nonprofit organization called Junior Achievement. Junior Achievement, their focus or their mission, I should say, it's really to help inspire and prepare young people from kindergarten through grade 12 to really learn about the concept of money, what does it mean to save money, so that we can line it up to be a successful, having a successful in the global economy. And then under the home pillar area, US Bank does a lot of different work around also, you know, first-time mortgage and things like that. So our BRG, often going back to the work pillar, typically we ask junior achievement to help identify schools that have high Asian students attendance. So typically our target is really volunteering with schools that have 85 to 95% Asian students. And typically our Asian ERG volunteers will come in and do volunteerism around kind of that money concept. And then the play pillar, that's anywhere about art and then also culture. So those are kind of how our old focus, the new focus, like how everybody has been pivoting because of the pandemic, we're now shifting to 3 new focus. It's what I call Connect, where really the programming is really curating anything to connect with other employees. And then Be Well, it's really programming that help employee manage stress, manage work-life balance and things like that. And then last but not least is our Give Back, which is really kind of creating new thinking about what are those virtual skill-based volunteering that we can do. Santosh, I'll hand it over to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Astrid. So if you've been thinking of questions for Astrid, please keep them in the back of your mind or start throwing them in the chat window. And we're going to go to our next story. Kusum.
Hi, thanks, Santosh. So my name is Kusum Gosain. I think I have another slide, Santosh, on my introduction. Yep, this is perfect. So I'll just talk a little bit about myself. My name is Kusum Gosain and I work at 3M. I'm based in St. Paul, Minnesota, and it is 72 degrees outside. It is not snowing. A lot of you think that Minnesota is snow. We have a very nice weather today. I currently work as a chair of our Pan-Asian group called A3 Action. And what we do is we actually have we've been in existence for a really long time, but for past 5 years, we have encompassed all Asian, all Asians under one umbrella. So Indian, Chinese, Vietnam, Korea, like all the countries fall under A3 Action. So we have a very solid group at 3M. And just outside of 3M, I'm also involved in our community. So one of the associations is India Association of Minnesota. I've been part of that organization for a really long time. In 2012, I was president of that group. And then on the personal side, I'm originally from India. Been here in US for a long time now, so over 25 years. I'm married and I have a son who's actually in college, University of Madison. And on the personal side, I love to travel, cook, hike, and above all, I love to volunteer and stay engaged with community. Like I mentioned, India Association is one, but there's many other organizations in our local area that I'm part of. So moving to the next slide, Santosh. Okay, so talking about A3 Action. So our group is committed to advancing diverse and inclusive culture at 3M, and we represent and advocate for our Asian community. We do that through shared culture, supportive network, development opportunities, kind of like what Astrid was talking about, a very heavy focus on the advancement of Asians at 3M. But my next slide will show you, again, some similarities with US Bank. So moving on to the next one. So these are our pillars, career being one of the key areas where we're focusing on the employee development, professional development. And then connecting with the other chapters. Culture, of course, Lunar New Year, Diwali, other special celebrations, and making broader 3M aware of these cultural events that exist. But community is by far one of the base foundation for our organization. We, at 3M, at a bigger 3M level, A3 Action, we have our 3M Gives Foundation, which really helps us out, connect with communities, and that's how we kind of stay engaged. And communication is our foundation pillar that helps us get connected with our membership internally and externally. So moving on to the next slide. Okay, so similar to what Astrid was kind of mentioning, you know, the focus, like how do we stay engaged with our community? So 3M is a science company. So science is core value for us. We solve real life problems by applying science. That is basically our logo, science applied to life. It is very important for us to stay connected with our future generation and to inspire them about education and particularly about STEM careers. And we do that at all levels, from kindergarten to grade 12, and also with the college community. These are just some of the programs that I highlighted. Junior Achievement, as we talked about that. But then there's Best Prep. Best Prep is a Minnesota-based nonprofit organization. And I kind of pulled the code in the blue is actually pulled out from their website. We were the founding members for Best Prep. And we help them create experiential experiences for learning, you know, for students and for teachers. And there are hundreds of volunteers that help mentor that group. So in addition to that, we stay connected with the University of Minnesota student population. So for Best Prep and Junior Achievement, we go to them, but we also make effort of bringing them to 3M. So one of the programs that we did was we brought university students to our 3M Innovation Center, where we have a display of many technologies that 3M is working on in the past or is coming. So we expose these students to those technologies. And what we do is, like, you know, we're one of the companies that have a position called Chief Science Advocate. And our Chief Science Advocate is Jayshree Seth. She is Asian woman, very, very active and passionate about science. And she was chair of A3 Action in 2019. And she's been very active in connecting and bringing science from outside 3M to all the schools and other organizations. So we're fortunate that we have an Asian who's helping us actually meet our goal of staying connected with the community. So this is sort of like, you know, on the education piece. I do want to highlight one more thing. You know, beyond education, we also stay connected with other nonprofit organizations in Twin Cities. And one such example that I want to bring up is, it's not listed on this slide, but it's an organization called SEVA. And the reason I mentioned about SEVA is, you know, in these difficult times like today, you know, when everybody's staying home. Some of us are fortunate we have home and we can work from home, but not everybody is very fortunate about that. Some have to actually fend for food and even for, like, you know, shelter and whatnot. So the SEVA organization is stepped up, and even before, you know, they were helping our senior population in time of need. They've even stepped up more, and we stay connected with SEVA. That's one organization where our members volunteer, reach out, you know, physically, monetarily, and we've connected this organization to our 3M Gives organization, and we're working very closely. So I think in this time, you know, in the virtual environment, in time of need, staying connected with community is even gone to the next level. So I really wanted to bring that out as well. So 3M is very actively involved in the local community. I just highlighted the local, but we are a global company, so we are working on global programs as well. So thank you for the opportunity for me to share these with everybody today.
Thanks, Kutham. All right, moving to our friend Newland. Newland, are you on?
Yep, thanks, Santosh. So before I get started, and actually, Santosh, you can hit the next slide if you would, or one more, sorry. So before I get started, I want to shout out to Will and Santosh and the NAAAP team for putting this together, and specifically to Santosh's pink blazer there. The last ERG event we did together, he was rocking that, and it seemed to go pretty well. So I'm going to start assuming that that's a good luck charm. So I want to share three main things with you guys today. One of them is just a personal story. that I think captures why a lot of us do ERGs and the approach we take at the USTA for them. And then we'll share the benefits of really being involved in the community, and then we'll really drill down into some tangible examples of how USTA accomplishes that. So the three on here, you can kind of see, we talk about intersectionality a lot, but one thing I wanted to share with all of you is I think we can have a very strong intersectionality between our professional lives, our personal lives, and / community lives, and the ERG, BRGs is really a bridge to those. So in these three pictures, it's kind of those three areas for me, and it's presented a lot of opportunity for me personally, and we really try to embrace that at USTA and give that opportunity to others as well. So if you hit the next slide, Santosh, this kind of illustrates that, and NAAAP Orlando is the community organization that we work with as an ERG, and so it doesn't necessarily have to be a NAAAP chapter, but just, and I'm biased because I am a NAAAP president and member, but NAAAP is a really good organization to work with from a grassroots level, but doesn't necessarily have to be NAAAP, just anything that has that grassroots and community outreach could substitute for here. So if you go to the next slide, Santosh, what we've been able to do at the USTA is really, again, have an intersectionality of three different organizational goals. So with the USTA, and I'll talk specifically on our mission towards the end here of what we're looking at, but with the USTA, our mission of growing the game and getting exposure to different populations and extending the game of tennis to as many people as we can, that intersects with the Asian American Business Resource Group, where we try to bridge the gap again between the USTA offerings, programs, and also do, like I believe was mentioned earlier, a lot of employee engagement and employee care. And then NAAAP Orlando, obviously, with being a community program, they're trying to assist with helping community organizations outside of NAAAP Orlando. So, for example, there's an organization in Orlando that does outreach with high school and middle school students, where it gives them an opportunity to learn about, to embrace, and to celebrate Asian American culture, for example. And so really, again, the intersectionality of these allows us to work and share a lot of resources when it comes to fulfilling each group's mission. So specifically what that looks like, if you can hit the next slide there, Santosh, for us, and I would encourage any of you that work at a company that has ERGs or are thinking about having ERGs to share this framework, and I'm happy to share these slides with any of you. For us specifically at USTA, what this ends up looking like is the first and foremost thing, especially during these times, are the business goals. So looking at that for the USTA of driving the business and driving our mission of growing the sport of tennis. And how we've been able to do that is by partnering with community groups and our ERGs to host tennis mixers, tennis events, where we invite people to whether it's our facilities or public facilities. So it's really driving our mission. And obviously all of our program managers and senior leadership at the USTA are happy to hear that when we're able to leverage ERGs and BRGs to do that. And then forming national relationships and connections, we were able to host the National Leadership Academy at the USTA National Campus this year. That was a NAAAP national event where we had a lot of leadership from different chapters around the country come in. And just those connections in themselves, we were able to host things and give exposure again to more tennis, to the USTA, while serving a need of an organization like NAAAP and other community groups to do what they do best. And then last, but probably most topical at this point, is overlapping ERG needs with local organizations. So that picture that you can kind of see in the background there was taken at a self-care and wellness workshop that we did both with the USGA as well as with NAAAP Orlando. And I'm not sure if Jeannie Chang's on the call, but shout out to Jeannie Chang, who is the director of wellness, self-care and wellness. But we were able to work with her and work with NAAAP to deliver self-care and wellness webinars. We've actually done a few of these recently to offer employees just opportunities and chances to be heard, to walk through mental health and awareness and self-care. And really, obviously at this point, it's been mentioned before that we're all having to pivot, we've really embraced that and tried to embrace the mental health aspect of COVID as much as possible. So again, with these three areas, we've really been able to do a lot. And the beauty of it, because I think anyone who is involved with an ERG can relate to this, you're doing a million things. And your job really takes your normal day-to-day work takes precedence over everything else. So having done this, we're able to really knock out a few things at once and serve a few different organizations while keeping things pretty simple. So I believe that's my last slide there. But again, happy to answer any questions towards the end. And if you guys have any questions for me specifically, more than happy to help with anything you're doing and to share any information and practices that we've done when it comes to this. Thanks, Santosh.
Thanks, Nolan. All right, and our final panelist speaker person for today is Shruti Iyer. Shruti, are you on?
Yes, I am. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Great. Santosh, if you want to go to the next slide for me real quick. So hey everyone, my name is Shruti Iyer. I work at Medtronic as a reliability engineer. I support the mechanical circulatory support business. I've been with Medtronic for about 6 years now, and it's interestingly enough, 5 of them have been involved in ERGs. So I serve, this past fiscal year, I served as the chair of Asian Impact at Medtronic, our Twin Cities hub. Throughout my journey in ERGs, I've learned quite a bit, but I think the biggest learning for me was how really important it is to give back, and not only give back, but also pay it forward so that the next generation doesn't really run into the same barriers and hurdles that our generation may have run into. So I think that was the biggest learning for me, and I try to live that out. Even if I don't serve in ERGs in the future, I really want to make sure that I really try to live that on everything that I do. In my personal life, I actually play a lot of music. I sing, I play guitar, I play the drums, and I dabbled a little bit in stand-up comedy, kind of did a couple of shows here and there, but I'm not that funny apparently, so I didn't continue. Santosh, you want to hit the next slide? One huge thing that we're really privileged to have at Medtronic is a lot of support from upper management. So everyone knows Omar Ishraq used to serve as our CEO. I know now Jeff Martha is our new CEO. But one thing that Omar did mention was the real importance of diversity. So he always kind of presented very eloquently the business case of diversity. And he mentions that our customer base, so when you look at Medtronic or any of our companies that we're talking about today, our customers are really diverse. The people that we're trying to serve, the community that we're trying to serve is extremely diverse. And in order to match up to that, it is important for our business to wear that same level of diversity, to kind of display that same level of diversity internally. And finally, to have that level of differing opinions and differing thought within the company so we can innovate in the right direction. And I think that's something that he really emphasized well and really did represent in the company as well. One thing that I want to talk about before jumping into our personal story here is the fact that, yes, all of us are involved in ERGs, but I think there's a lot of potential, a lot of scope to really build out and work together. And I'm really thankful to have a group like NAAAP to kind of allow for us to come together and share ideas. I mean, I learned so much today in our conversation with Kusum, Astrid, and Newland that, I mean, I probably wouldn't have heard of in our day-to-day, work days, right? So I'm really, really thankful that we have such a great team and such a great opportunity here. If you want to jump to the next slide. One of the things that we've noticed over the years, and I'll talk about this from a personal standpoint first. So I went to the University of Minnesota. I studied engineering back, graduated in 2014. I noticed that it was very difficult to find accessible role models in the companies that I wanted to work at. Yes, you would see representatives from these companies at career fairs, but I felt like it was very difficult to try to find someone maybe a few years ahead of you trying to pursue the same kind of professional interests. And I noticed that as a gap, but I never really thought about it until I was able to view the same gap from the other side, from the side of being at a professional career. I recently, I guess let me jump back to when I first started at Medtronic. So that first year, I was really gung-ho about trying to serve as a recruiter, help out with HR at these career fairs. And I noticed that predominantly, a lot of the volunteers that we had at the time, this was back in 2016, a lot of the volunteers that went to campus to help out at these career fairs were very homogenous. There wasn't that level of diversity. And when I worked in the company, I saw all of my colleagues, such a diverse and rich culture. So there was a little bit of a gap between the diversity that we depicted to our new hires and to anybody who was interested in our company, and the real diversity that was present within the walls of Medtronic. To address that gap, as I started working a little closer with ERGs in the company, AIM put together a couple initiatives. The first one was we realized that several other ERGs kind of noticed that same gap. So whether you would talk about the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, or NSBE, or our Society of Women Engineers, a lot of these other ERGs also kind of ran into that same observed gap. So we got everyone together in the same room, kind of ideated together, and we came up with this concept called the Emerge event. And what this was it was a presentation to the University of Minnesota. We said that from our side, from the Medtronic side, we would bring 5 ERGs together under the same roof, and we would bring current employees who currently work at Medtronic in various fields: clinical, regulatory, engineering, sales, marketing, various professions. Bring everybody into the same room and allow students to network one-on-one, and also demo to the students the current products that we were working on. So this kind of two-sided approach of allowing students not to just interact with the employees themselves, but also see the products that are currently under works, was really, really instrumental in presenting and providing us another flow, an influx of new interns for that coming year. We actually noticed quite a bit of diverse interns applying for Medtronic, just because we were able to go that one extra step to partner with the University of Minnesota and partner with our HR team to do this. A question about sustainability here, and this kind of goes out to everybody on the call, the experts on the panel, as well as our folks from NAAAP, as well as the audience members. As we move into a more virtual environment, do you think that recruiting practices and hiring practices are going to change slightly? And if so, how can we all ideate together as ERGs to kind of help mediate this and still provide that level of mentorship for anyone who's joining the company as an intern, but really still operate around the working limitations that we currently have? So that's something to think about. And we can kind of jump into that later on in the conversation here. But since then, one thing that we have done to make things sustainable is there has been 1 or 2 AIM representatives in every single career fair since 2016. So one face of diversity, it's like one step in the right direction, moving the needle ever so slightly, in hopes that in the future, we can build out that team and build out a diverse recruiting team to really showcase both inside as well as outside, right? Inside Medtronic, very diverse, outside community, very diverse, but it's that one small step and reaching out that hand that would truly help build out that talent pipeline in the future, is what we believe. And with that, I want to thank the NAAAP team for giving this wonderful opportunity. And Santosh, I'd like to give back to you.
Absolutely. So I am hoping that everyone has enjoyed that. Again, I asked the panelists to keep it short because while I know that they are all very talented and they could, probably spend 30 minutes to an hour on each one of these presentations, there's a lot more to it. They wanted to really kind of give you a little bit of meat, just to kind of chew on and, just really see some of the possibilities that are happening. So now what we want to do is we just kind of want to pivot to a Q&A, right? Ask our panelists anything. I think that there are actually a couple of questions that have already happened. So I'm going to ask my panelists these questions, but then if we get through these questions, we'll open it up on the audio and people can ask questions, or you can still ask them in the chat, and Will is monitoring that. So for all the panelists, if you guys will unmute, and here's our first question. Very simple, don't overthink it. What books, texts, websites, or other things would you use to recommend someone that's new to BRGs and ERGs who want to propose this to their companies as a potential offering in the future?
I can go for it. Oh, go for it.
No, I was just saying I would recommend going on NAAAP website, become a NAAAP member.
Woo!
Yes, for sure. And then secondly, we recently actually got engaged with the SACE. SACE is also another organization. I think that, you know, I encourage everyone to actually attend SACE events as well. Very, very engaging and informative. So I did want to call out NAAAP because seriously, like, you know, I think today's event was one learning, but engaging with Will and other members from NAAAP team and just the welcoming mat that was laid out is like, you know, if we need at 3M, if we need any speakers, need any workshops, anything, you know, reach out to NAAAP. So I just wanted to make sure that I call that out. So for sure, I recommend attending.
Shruti, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, in addition, a great book that almost every single person who joins the Medtronic ERG AIM is assigned to read is Jane Hyun's book, Breaking the Bamboo Ceiling. I know it's a little bit of an old one, but if you haven't read that, I would really read that. It truly argues the business case of ERGs really well and kind of highlights nuances that you may not be aware of that you may have seen in your career as well.
Awesome. Newland or Astrid, anything additional to add, or I'll go to my next question.
I think organization-wise,
Sorry.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Newland.
Astrid,
No, go ahead, Newland.
No, okay, go ahead, Newland.
Just an easy one, since a lot of us are talking about career fairs and things like that. I believe APEX or Asian Student Associations, when it comes to universities, if you have those in your areas, those are a huge one because they don't necessarily always fall under a NAAAP umbrella, but those are, depending on which area you're in, those can be huge organizations and really feed the funnel of what we're talking about here today.
Awesome. All right, so this next question is for Astrid to start off with. Do members receive any recognition for their contribution or participation with the BRGs? And do you also have a sponsorship program to take mentorship to the next level?
So, so to the first question, yes, our BRG board members receive recognition. So there's kind of two levels of recognition. So essentially within the segment, so typically like in some other companies, you call it co-chairs or what have you. So they kind of look at, as a leader of the chapter, they provide like immediate recognition. But if there's something that's really, truly above and beyond, typically they'll bubble it up to the DEI team, which is, I manage the Asian segment. And typically I'm very involved, so I know already kind of what's coming. And so I would create like a more of enterprise level recognition. So that's kind of the two types of recognition at the bank. In terms of taking on mentoring to the next level into sponsorship, so there is like the off the book sponsorship that not a lot of people really know about, and that's what my team and as the DEI team, we're trying to push that more in terms of, especially for people of color. At least at the bank, part of the issue is really people of color, we don't get this, or at least we're not aware of stretch assignment opportunities that are out there, or even cross promotion of internal talent. So that's kind of one thing that we're working on at the bank. So hopefully, I would say in the next 2 to 3 years, we'll have a more formalized sponsorship at US Bank.
Kusum or Shruti or Newland, anyone want to add to that sponsorship program that's happening at your ERG levels or BRG levels?
Sure, I can add a couple of things. We have, you know, there are multiple sponsorship or I should say mentorship programs at 3M. So we've got 9 ERG groups. Each group does their own mentoring program. We've done, A3 Action has done mentorship program in the past. We are actually kicking it up a notch this year and doing a lot of homework. And the key to mentorship program is finding that right connection of matching the mentee to the mentor. You know, a vanilla mentorship program has not been a very successful thing for us in the past. So we're going an extra mile to come up with the strategy of how do we make sure that the chemistry of the mentor and the mentee gel, so that they could work together and take it to the next level. So we are actually, this is a very hot topic, and we are working on this, and we're benchmarking with many other mentorship programs that are at 3M and also outside. And then as far as sponsorship goes, I know mentorship and sponsorship sometimes get mixed up, but they're completely two different things. So sponsor is not, you don't match, but you know, you pick, or a sponsor picks you. We reach out to our senior leaders, and we kind of organize these events where they could come up with some strategies for people to choose those sponsors. How do you actually find a sponsor? And when you find it, how do you stay connected? So those tips and tricks and some best practices on those is something A3 Action provides to its members.
Awesome. So this next question, I'm going to start off with Newland, then Trudy, maybe you can jump in as well. What kind of collaboration does your ERG, BRG do across chapters or other companies in different areas of the country? And, you know, everyone can definitely answer this, but Newland, would you like to kick that one off?
Sure, thanks, Santosh. So with the USTA, we have sections and districts that are kind of our hierarchy of umbrella organizations underneath us. And I would say that from a national standpoint, the relationship with NAAAP as a perfect example, that's really paved inroads for us, where we can connect different sections and different districts with their local chapters of NAAAP. So that way there's a very strong parallel, and having that relationship from a national perspective has been really pivotal in us being able to trickle that down to our other groups and our other stakeholders in our company. And not all of our sections and districts have ERGs and BRGs. Actually, I believe most of them probably don't, but it's still just that business connection, again, is what really we rely on to drive the mission. So not sure if that completely answered it, but I'll defer to another panelist on that one for international things.
Trudy?
Yeah, I mean, Newland, that was a great foundation that you guys are doing. I think Medtronic has something similar. So the ERG that I spoke about today was AIM Twin Cities. Medtronic actually has AIM Network, which is all across the US. And now we actually have 2 hubs located, one in Canada and one in India. So yes, the programs that we've built out, some of them start at that network level, at that national level. One such program is our career development program. So we have Demystifying Career Development as one of our workshops. What that is across Medtronic, we use several, goal setting metrics when you have your one-on-ones with your boss and whatnot. And this type of workshop helps kind of focus in on the Asian American and Asian demographic, and really helps us navigate those one-on-one career discussions that we have with our managers.
Kusum, anything to add?
Yeah, I want to add, I think it was very well covered, Shruti. So for us, I would say this new time, this new way of working has actually opened up many opportunities for us. We have learned these new tools, like, that we're using today. So essentially all the tools that we're using are free, right? So the events are not costing, we're not providing any refreshments or booking any rooms or getting speakers. So it's been actually a new learning that with the virtual and abilities to record, we're reaching out broader than just the St. Paul or the Minnesota based employees. So every time we organize any career advancement or we talk with the senior leaders, we open it up to broader 3M. We don't leave it just for the A3 Action members. Anyone can be part of our events. So that actually has worked out really well. I think that's called silver lining, right? So you learn some things, like, when the situation kind of puts it in front of you. So yes, we've been connecting broader than St. Paul.
Yeah. Awesome.
And actually, can I piggyback on that? Because Kusum brought up a really, really good point there. An inherent opportunity, I think, from the disconnect of what we're looking at right now is actually it levels the playing field if you're not in the same area as your team. Because I think we've all been on webinars where when you're in an office and you're going to talk to the 5 people that you're with, but then the people on the call kind of get neglected. We've seen that at USTA, where our offices in Cincinnati and New York, it's really actually been beneficial for our relationships with each other, because it really levels the playing field, and there's not that kind of in-group and out-group when it comes to the digital piece. So I really like that comment.
Awesome. Astrid?
Yeah, so at US Bank, we also really hone in on intersectionality, right? So we often partner with other ERGs within the company. So for example, in the month of May, we also share that with Memorial Day, so our military group. So oftentimes we think of that, okay, do we have a speaker who happens to be a veteran, but then also Asian? So that way, like, we're kind of creating camaraderie and then network between the two ERGs. So we try to find that with other ERGs. But also because of the pandemic, so the way the Asian Employee Resource Group at Target is formatted is typically we have 3 marked local chapters. So like there's one in the Twin Cities, one in Southern California, and one in Chicago. And so, but on top of that, we also have what we call the virtual chapter, because the virtual chapter exists for those employees who self-ID as Asian, but don't sit in a market where there's a lot of employee self-ID. So it really doesn't make sense to open up a local chapter. So that's why we have a virtual chapter. And all of their programmings are really done through a webinar. But with this pandemic, everything moving to a virtual format, and we don't want the chapters to compete. And so we're pivoting and acting as one Asian Heritage chapter where, for the Heritage Month, as an example, each chapter is taking on and really curating programming for that week. So it's really just coming together and really creating great collaboration.
That's awesome. So we're going to ask one more question, 30 seconds each to each of my panelists, but I wanted to also share about this question at the Nielsen level. So one interesting thing that we're doing is, a little bit of the history of our Asian affinity group. For a long time, we were called the Asian American Affinity Group. And that was kind of, interesting because it really boxed us into a very, very small group of people. And then we changed it to, Asian affinity, and, we were able to broaden ourselves. But then when you go overseas, it's not the same thing, right? It's not the same meaning. So overseas, we actually have a different set of ERGs called Mosaic, which is really more focused on multicultural. We're not really focused on one specific affinity, but we're really more specifying on all the different things that the multicultural groups can reach out to in those particular regions and areas. So, sometimes it's not one size fits all. You can do some different things. We still have the same pillars, right? So you saw a lot of our panelists showed their pillars of their ERGs. We still have all the same pillars, but we have different descriptions of our ERGs to kind of make them a little bit more palatable and more approachable or adoptable by different people in different regions. All right, so our final 30-second question. I'm going to see, I'll call each of the panelists really quickly. Can you talk about seeking an executive sponsor for your ERG or BRG? Newland, I'm going to start with you, and then Shruti, and then Kusum, and then Astrid will finish you out.
Thanks, Santosh. All right, 30 seconds timer. You can cut me off if I go long. But we actually, to borrow something you just said, when we work with our executive sponsors for USTA, and they're already set up, but if we were to do it again, really finding an executive sponsor who's passionate about something. It could be wellness, it could be young professional development, or it could be whatever it is, but really tapping into that passion that they have and giving that avenue to deliver on it outside the lines of what your company normally does, I think is really the beauty of the ERG, BRG structure. And I think that's the easiest way to get an executive sponsor, is to find out what they're passionate about and see how you can deliver it. And then obviously, like for an Asian American BRG, you can do a different spin on it that pertains to that particular population. But I think finding that passionate executive is really the first step there.
Awesome. Shruti?
Kind of want to build off of that, Newland. You said that really well. I think one of the best avenues that we've found for executive sponsors and just executive leaders in general is to invite them to serve as speakers. So kind of hitting on what Astrid said earlier, find that intersectionality. So whether it's like, for us, it would be like a therapy unit or a business unit that they would potentially lead. So maybe invite them as an AIM speaker, but kind of focused on that particular business unit, and thereby having them put their foot into the door when it comes to ERG work, kind of propose the business case to them in that sense. And eventually getting their buy-in, you can see if they have alignment with what you're trying to do and have passion for what you're trying to do. And then potentially you can, ask if they would serve as your executive sponsor. That's worked well for us.
Awesome. Kuza?
Yep, very similar to what Newland and Shruti said. At 3M, I think passion is the key word for ERG. And somebody had asked the same question, is like, what keeps you going? Why are you part of it? I think it's the passion. We're just so passionate. And we look for the same in our exec sponsor. We work very closely with our DNI team, and they assign an exec sponsor. But in addition to that, we actually have a council or a board where all the senior leaders are put together. So we connect with these senior leaders on a regular basis, and we invite them for 2-hour events. Sometimes they are the keynote speakers. And I think that platform has really helped, actually. So if we were to pick our next sponsor, we have that platform where we can go and choose. So the keyword is passion and commitment that could help us drive.
Awesome. Astrid?
Yeah, on top of what everybody else already mentioned, I want to also help provide thoughts that think of those, besides alignment with kind of what you're trying to achieve, but then also passion, like think of those champion, right? Who can help remove roadblocks and who can help your BRG take that leap and go further. So that's kind of how it is. I mean, at US Bank, we're pretty fortunate that our executive sponsor is all the direct report of the CEO. We really have the buy-in from top of the house, so it's easier. But when we're thinking of more of those local champions, that's kind of the approach that I take.
It's awesome. Well, I want to say that I have successfully bribed my 3 children to not burst in the door. I am super excited. We have completed this awesome session, and one of the people that have been instrumental in pulling this off is our very own Will Chang, and I'm going to turn it over to him to say a thanks and just kind of a last bit of info.
Do you want to
and
like
give
the way that looks?
it to Will. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Santosh, and appreciate the words. And first, I want to say thank you to Kusum, Astrid, Shruti, Newland, and of course you, Santosh, as well, for spending an hour with us and tolerating both Santosh and I for the last few weeks. But I really wanted to say, of course, it is Asian Pacific Heritage Month, and just really thank you for being present, being engaged, and really just being courageous and vulnerable with everything you've shared. With all the work that we do within business resource groups, there's good and bad. There's great days, there's not so great days. And so thank you for sharing those stories. And I also want to thank everyone else for being here, spending your hour on at least here in Minnesota, a nice 70-degree day outside. I've been looking out to my left out of my home office. It's been great outside. But this type of event is really not possible without individuals like our 4 speakers, without Santosh and his leadership, and really all the leaders across the United States, Canada, and China. All of our NAAAP leaders, a lot of that you see on the phone right now, they're all volunteers. So just like many of you who are BRG leaders, you're all volunteers. And we do this work not because we have a lot of time on our hands, but we do it because we're passionate. Just like Kusum said, we do it because we're passionate, and we do it with all of our hearts. So again, thank you to all of you for being here. Whether or not you are part of NAAAP, if you are in a city, just Google NAAAP, whatever your city is or state, seek us out. Seek other organizations like SACE, Society of Asian Scientists and Engineers. At the end of the day, what's the most important thing when we do BRG work is that it's for everybody. It's not just for ourselves. Our role is to uplift the entire community, and we can only do that together. So thanks for being here. Have a great day, be safe, and we'll see you at our next event, which is next Wednesday, which is with our NAAP Pride team around queer, and we have a speaker next week. So we'll go to our website, naap.org, and you'll find everything under Asian Pacific Asian Heritage Month and events. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you all for attending.
Bye.